I can't see you and I can't hear you, so I'm just going to carry on and speak and wait for your questions at the end. So my name's Jane Dodd. I'm based in Oban and work for NatureScot. We're the government conservation agency, in case you don't know that. So we advise the Scottish Government on all conservation issues in Scotland, but I'm particularly involved in marine things, and I've been based in Oban and worked for NatureScot for about 20 years. I was asked at the beginning of my talk to provide some background for the uninitiated on skates and rays and sharks as well. So just a little bit of background before I get to talking about flapper skate in particular. So you might be familiar with the smaller ray species that we have in Scotland, things like thornback ray and blonde ray and undulate ray that live in the UK. Actually, these animals aren't rays at all, they're skate. So this is a weird anomaly of the common naming system, that all of these animals are actually skate. We don't have any rays, we don't have any true rays in the UK. Things like stingrays are quite different. They have a thin whip-like tail and they often lay live young, whereas skate have a thicker tail and often lay eggs. So that's the difference. Skates have a cartilaginous skeleton. They have no bones, so their skeleton is made of the stuff that we have in our ears and our nose. They don't have any bones, and they are related to sharks. Sharks have a similar cartilaginous skeleton, so they're all part of the same family. You can learn a lot more about UK, well, particularly Scottish sharks and skate from the dive-in resource, the new dive-in resource from the Seabird Centre that was released recently, and that is a shameless plug for their very nice new resource. So have a look at that. That will give you some more background on sharks and skates in Scotland. So most people, unless we have some anglers attending the talk, most people don't really interact with skate except through this. So you might see egg cases on the shore that have come from skate. So the skate hatch on the seabed, and when the egg cases are empty, they wash up in the strand line on the shore, commonly known as mermaids' purses. You might have seen them in the strand line and wondered what they are. You might have looked for them and reported them to the Shark Trust. The Shark Trust have a great key for identifying which skate your egg case came from. So if you have a look at that, you can download it off their website and you can key out what species you've found. And if you report those to the Shark Trust, that's really useful for skate conservation. This is a flapper skate egg case, so you can see from the hand in that image how big they are. They're about the size of half an A4, which is an A2 piece of paper. So quite large, the largest in Europe, because flapper skate are the largest skate in Europe. The females grow very, very large, up to 1.75 meters across and 3 meters long, and weigh over 100 kilograms. So they are large fish. You may see them referred to as common skate in some of the literature. So until quite recently, 2010, the two species were confused. People thought the two species, flapper skate and common blue skate, were the same. But a genetics project published in 2010 showed that they were two separate species. We're a bit slow in conservation, and we still sometimes refer to them as common skate or the common skate complex, but I'm guessing that will be phased out soon enough, and we'll be referring to flapper skate and common blue skate more readily. So just a little bit more background before we get to the science. They are critically endangered. So this is the IUCN description of the species. Flapper skate are on the red list and classed as critically endangered. That's actually more endangered than a panda these days, because pandas have been moved up the list and are not critically endangered anymore. And that's because they were targeted in fishing, and that caused a decline in numbers and range. They're no longer targeted in a fishery. It's illegal actually to land skate in the UK and the rest of Europe. They need to be put back unharmed. But recent reports suggest that flapper skate might be beginning to recover, so we're seeing the start of a recovery. So I'd like to talk today specifically about NatureScot's work to protect the flapper skate. What I need to caveat all of this with is that we work with a lot of other organisations on this work. So we work with Marine Scotland Science, who have a lab in Aberdeen. We work with Marine Scotland Policy, who lead the work on the conservation and the designation of sites, etc. And we've worked in collaboration with St Andrews University and the University of Aberdeen and the Scottish Association for Marine Science. So all of this work is very much a collaboration that's been going on for quite a long time, well over 10 years. We've been looking into skate in the area around Oban. So the story starts with tag recapture data, as it's referred to, that's been collected by volunteer anglers in the Mull and Oban area since the 1970s. So anglers come to the Oban area to fish for skate from all over the world. It's on their bucket list because it's a large species, and so they come here to capture skate. All the angling has always been capture and release, and in the 1970s, the fishermen the anglers started to become interested in whether the fish was sticking around in the area or not. So they started to put fly dart tags onto the fish. So these are, as the name suggests, little plastic dart shapes, and the head of the dart catches under the skin of the animal, and the end of the dart sticks out of the skin rather like a piece of spaghetti, and it's got a number written on it, which means if the angler catches that skate again, then he can record that number and he knows that he's recaptured it. So that data proved that skate are at least loyal to this area. They show site fidelity, so they come back to the area. So they're either resident here, they live here and they don't move very far, or they're leaving the area and they're coming back often and getting recaptured often. This data that the sea anglers were collecting was used to propose the marine protected area for skate, which is off of Oban. And so the Marine Act that covers marine protected areas in Scotland allows for third parties to propose MPAs, marine protected areas, and the Scottish Sea Angling Conservation Network, using the data they had collected, proposed the site back in 2014. So this slide shows the Loch Sunart to the Sound of Jura Marine Protected Area, or MPA, for flapper skate. So that runs hopefully you can see my cursor, it runs all the way down the Sound of the Loch Sunart, down the Sound of Mull, through the Firth of Lorn and south into the Sound of Jura. So the area highlighted in turquoise is Loch Sunart to the Sound of Jura MPA. So you can see Oban on the map there, Mull is here, and Isla down there, just to get your bearings. And it is, you know, a really big site actually compared to some of the others. So some of the other sites are on this map in red. This is Loch Creran and this is Loch Sween, so they're a lot smaller. It's 740 square kilometres in total. So I'm just referring to my notes on my other computer just to keep me on track. So the site was proposed in 2014 and was assessed by NatureScot and Marine Scotland in the same way that sites proposed by NatureScot were assessed. So all the sites went through the same assessment procedure with the data as justification, and the site was accepted for designation and was designated in 2016. So there are some management measures for the site. This is the management order for fishing, commercial fishing in the site, and you can see that covers the whole of the site area. The striped area is where mobile geofishing is completely banned in the site. So there's no trawling or dredging where the area is hashed. Where the area is spotty, trawling and dredging is allowed to happen during the winter time, but the tickler chain must be removed from the fishing equipment. So the tickler chain is the heavy chain that runs across the bottom of a trawl or dredge. And a study showed that if that tickler chain is removed, then the bycatch of skate is reduced. So if anybody is fishing inside the MPA, then they need to remove the tickler chain from the equipment. So once the site is designated, and this is where it gets a bit more interesting, we have a duty to monitor the site. And so we decided to carry on tagging skate to try and keep an eye on what the population was doing. But there'd been some controversy about external tagging. So the dart tags could sometimes leave scar tissue in the skin of the skate, because if the skate is swimming around and the tag is therefore moving around, then the animal isn't going to properly heal around the tag site sometimes. So we decided to go with internal tags. So we use passive integrated transponders, which are a couple of millimeters long, and they're just like the tags that the vet will put in your cat or your dog. So we always put them in a particular site. So you can see my colleague James here is scanning that skate for its tag, which is put in the left front wing. And you can see the tagging gun behind him. So there's a hypodermic needle through which the tag is injected into the skate, and then we scan the animal for the tag number. And that's allowed us to carry on tagging skate in the MPA. The data is used by Marine Scotland Science. They're going to use it to model the survival rate of skate in the MPA, and that will give us an idea about whether the MPA and the management measures in it are protecting the animals if the survival rate increases over time. We've taught local skate charter skippers to do the tagging. So these are the chaps who own boats and take paying customers out to fish for skate. So the volume of skate that they are catching in the MPA is pretty high, because they might have 6 anglers on their boat every day. We taught them to do the tagging, and they continued to do that on a volunteer basis for us and give us the data back, which is great, because that it continues to keep the anglers involved with the project, with collecting data for us. So in this photo, this is Ronnie Campbell, one of our skippers. He's putting a tag into a skate in this photo, and in the next photo, in the next image, he's taken a photograph of a skate, and these are used for our Skatespotter project, which we work on with the Scottish Association for Marine Science. Their lab is just outside Oban. So Stephen Benjamins from SAMS got hold of about 400 digital photos of skate from Ronnie. So when the angler catches a skate, he generally wants a photograph with it on the deck of the vessel. So we collected all of those photos, and Stephen Benjamins was able to identify, out of those 400 photos, about 250 animals that had been captured multiple times during that period of 2011 to 2016. So those 250 images, 250 to 300 images, were the start of Skatespotter. And basically, Skatespotter is a database of all of that data. So it appears to you and I as a website, but behind that is the storage of all the pit tagging data and the photo ID data sitting there in the website, and it's available to the anglers, so they can go in and they can search for skate. So say they catch a skate on a particular day and they know they submitted a photo, they can go back later and look for that particular day, find the skate that they captured, and by that time we will have matched it to others in the database, either by its pit tag number or its spot pattern. The spot patterns are rather like fingerprints, they're unique to each skate. So we match the skate by their spot patterns, and the angler can go back and say, oh, I caught that skate on X day and it had been captured 6 times before, or it hadn't been captured before, or it's been captured since. So they can see the history of the animals that they capture. So Skatespotter was launched in 2018. Most of the data in there, we've got nearly 2,000 skate in there now, and most of them are from the Loch Soonart to the Sound of Jura MPA, because that's where we generate most data from our charter skippers. But recently people have started submitting photos from Shetland and Orkney and the Outer Hebrides, so we're starting to spread out our data, and that puts starts to put Loch Soonart to the Sound of Jura in a sort of Scottish context and tells us a bit more about the animals. I just wanted to show you one of our recaptures so you can see the kind of data that's in there. This is a male skate that was caught in the Firth of Lorn, and it was first captured in 2018, and it's been caught 27 times since. And you can scroll through and see all of those photographs. You can see it's got a DI for Dicturus intermedia, which is the Latin name of skate. It's DI 289, and it's the M for male at the top of the screen, and then it's got a pip tag number as well. You can tell the males are slightly different to the females because they have a patch of spines on the wing. You can obviously see the claspers in the male as well, but the females don't have this patch of spines on the wing, which is quite distinctive in the males only. So our data continues to show that the skate are showing site fidelity or are resident in the site. So they might leave and come back soon after. And as I said, Marine Scotland are going to use this data to model the survival rate of the skate in the MPA. So that is part of our monitoring duty to check that. So we've done a couple more slightly more sophisticated skate tracking projects in the MPA since the site was proposed in 2014. We've used a mixture of data storage tags, and these are tags that record the depth and the temperature of the water the skate move through, and you can use that information on depth and temperature to model where the skate move. And this image shows a data storage tag on a skate. We put them on pins through the wing. It's rather like a piercing. And if you look closely, you can see that that tag has my contact details on it. So the data storage tags, they, as the name suggests, store the data in them, and we have to get them back from the anglers in order to download the data from them. The return rate was really, really high. There was a reward offered, but a lot of the anglers didn't accept the reward. They just gave them back to us, and we got well over 50% of the skate tags back with the data in them. We also, during this project, put on acoustic tags on the skate. So these look similar, but they're black, and they send out a continuous ping, and there has to be a listening device in the water to listen for those. So when the skate comes close to the acoustic receiver, it receives a ping, and we know exactly where the fish is. So the two systems together, the data storage tag and the acoustic tag, can give us very, very detailed information about the small scale movements of the skate. So we did a couple of these projects. We did one as the site was proposed to set the southern boundary for the site, and then we did another one around 2016 at the bottom of the Sound of Mull and around Kerrera to see where the fish were moving. We were testing the technology as well because it had never really been used before, and we had some trials and tribulations with that, but we have gone on to continue using it in the MPA. And what we have at the moment for the ongoing monitoring is 10 receivers in the site, across the site, and we've tagged 50 skate in order to see where they're moving. So because, and these are long-term tags, so they're going to stay on the skate for 10 years. They're going to be viable, these tags, for 10 years. So rather than putting them externally on the animals, because as the skate grows, over a period of 10 years, that could cause quite a lot of damage if the skate was on the if the tag was on the outside. We now put them inside the body cavity. So what you can see in this image is Georgina Cole, who is on the right, is a vet from Edinburgh Zoo, and they've been helping us with this project. So they helped us devise the method for putting the tags inside the animals. So she's putting the tag in the front of the picture. You can see my colleague James Thorburn. He is using an ultrasound on the skate. We've also got a pipe in its mouth with oxygenated seawater, so that the animal is still getting oxygen during this procedure. James is looking at the heart to check the heart rate during the procedure as well. At the back corner, the top left corner of the image, that's Adam Naylor, who is another vet from Edinburgh Zoo, who would be taking blood samples during this procedure as well. So we do that by there's a vein that runs along the tail, so he would take blood from that vein, and we analyse that to look for stress hormones and reproductive hormones, so we can learn a bit more about the skate. If it's a female, we would ultrasound to see whether she had any eggs inside her as well before she would be released off the deck of the boat. So we learn as much as we can from capturing a single fish, and the work is multifaceted. So we're trying to look at the reproduction of the animals, and we're trying to look at the impact of angling as well, with the stress hormones, etc. I'm just checking I've said everything I need to say. Of course, the work is carried out under a Home Office licence to ensure the welfare of the animals as well, and we do learn as much as we can from as few individuals as possible, because we don't want to be removing too many fish and doing this procedure on them. So that's our work on adult skate. It has produced a huge amount of data. The data storage tags and the acoustic tags we used earlier, that data is still being analysed. And what we've learned is that the skates spend quite a lot of time in deep water. They seem to like the deep trenches in the Loch Sunat to the Sound of Jura MPA, but that in the winter they're spending quite a lot of time in shallow water. So that was interesting, because we thought that they spent all their time in these deep channels, but they are moving into shallow water during the winter months. So we're learning more and more from that data, and then we'll have the data from the 10-year tags as well to learn even more. The same technology, the acoustic receivers, is used by different projects now all over the place. So if our skates leave the MPA, there are similar receivers in the Clyde near Northern Ireland, and so our skate have moved out of the MPA and been picked up by receivers elsewhere, and then they've come back. So that's really interesting, that we previously would have assumed that the animals were resident because they ping the receiver continuously in the MPA, but because we've seen them leave and come back, we know that there's site fidelity as well, so they are leaving the site and not just staying there the whole time. So moving on to something a bit more recent, the work on adults is ongoing, but this is something quite new. Occasionally, female skate release eggs onto the deck of an angling vessel when they're on board. And we've been told that by the skippers, they generally put the eggs back. But we know so little about the reproduction of eggs. We didn't know how long the eggs take to hatch, and we don't know how many eggs they lay a year, things like this. So we asked the skippers, our trusted skippers, to look out for skate eggs for us. And this was in 2009. I'd said to them, we'd quite like to get an egg so we can see if we can hatch it and see how long it takes. And on the 4th of April 2019, I received this image from one of our skippers, and he had a female had released an egg onto the deck, and he put it into a bucket for us. We went down from the Sound of Jura and picked it up and brought it back to the aquarium facility at the Scottish Association for Marine Science. This is what it looked like, kind of leathery and golden greeny brown, I suppose. You can see the size of it there, and in quite good condition, and quite like I say, leathery and not at all brittle at that point. It was quite soft, and the horns at each corner, as they're called, were quite curled as well. So we put it onto a light box to have a look at it so we could see what was inside. And as you can see here, you can see at the beginning in May 2019, the yolk, all you could see was the yolk of the egg, and it was quite well defined. Dr. Stephen Benjamins at SAMS continued to take a photograph of the egg once a week to see if we could see anything, a change in its development. It was difficult to see anything. We couldn't see an embryo moving about or anything. So when the vets from the zoo were over doing some adult tagging, we took the ultrasound equipment into the aquarium at SAMS and had a look at the egg via the ultrasound, and we were able to see the embryo moving about, which confirmed that it was still alive, because we were a bit worried that it wasn't still alive. But I was told that it would start really stinking the aquarium up if the egg had died. So I was hopeful it was still alive, but this was what we needed to confirm that. So in June of 2020, believe it or not, a long time later, I received this photograph from Dr. Benjamins at SAMS, and I thought to myself, oh, that egg looks like it's almost ready to hatch, because you can see the rostrum, or the nose of the baby skate in the bottom of the egg, and it looks quite well defined. So I asked SAMS to transfer the egg to an aquarium where it could be observed 24 hours a day and filmed 24 hours a day, because we were hopeful of catching the moment that it hatched. So I was given a live feed to this on my mobile, on my phone, so that I could keep looking at the egg all the time. And of course, I became completely obsessed, and I was checking it about 20 times a day. And what we did was prop the egg against this rock you can see in the aquarium here, and because we knew that it would hatch from that end. So the one end of the egg, as you've seen in the other images, has a deeper apron of tissue, as it's called, than the other end, and they always hatch from that end, the anterior end where the deep apron is. So we propped the egg against the rock, focused on that end to try and capture the moment of hatching. And on the morning of the 20th of September, which was a Sunday, typically, I looked at my phone and I saw this image, and I thought, oh, what's happened? Has the egg just fallen over, or has something more obvious happened here? So we couldn't get it confirmed until the following day, because it was a Sunday. Nobody was going into the lab. But on the Monday morning, somebody went into the aquarium, and this is what they found in the tank where the egg had been. So we then proceeded to release the juvenile, because we didn't want to keep it in captivity. And my colleagues in our communications department made this video for us about the work. And I'll just let it play for a minute and have a sip of water, because my voice is starting to go. So as you can see, we were really lucky to capture the moment of hatching, and eventually it was confirmed that the egg had hatched at 10 to 11 on the Saturday night. And so I'd then seen the empty egg the following morning. This footage was quite nice of the embryo moving on the ultrasound. And this is us just putting the egg back, and we managed to get putting the juvenile back into the MPA, and we managed to get some footage of it swimming away as well, which was really nice. So that it hatched on the 19th of September, 534 days, or almost 18 months after being laid, which was a surprise to us, because in the literature it had been described as 2 or 3 months as the hatching period. So that was quite a surprise, and we did write that up for a journal. So we've produced a short note on that to confirm the hatching period, because it was the first time from day 0 to hatching that an egg had been raised. Just let the video finish and then I'll move on. Okay, so alongside our work on hatching the egg, in the autumn of 2019, NatureScot received a report of a lot of eggs in an area known as Red Rocks in the Inner Sound near Skye. So in March 2020, I took a dive team to have a look at the site. We brought the eggs to the surface to put them on a light box, as we had done with the egg that we had in captivity. So we recorded the development stage of all the eggs, and we collected a little sample of the tissue from the apron that I referred to earlier to be analysed for DNA. We sampled 67 eggs in total. There were hundreds at the site, and all in different stages of development. So we think that Red Rocks has been used by multiple females for several years as an egg nursery, and hopefully the DNA can prove that. Because if there were eggs in the same vicinity that were laid by the same female, but they're at different development stages, we'll see that the female is coming back to the same site to lay eggs on multiple occasions, or we'll be able to get a better handle on how egg laying is happening. We think females lay 2 eggs at a time, so they might lay them within a few hours or a few days of each other, but we don't know much else really. We don't know how many eggs they lay a year, but obviously the 18-month development period has helped us try to understand a little bit more, but there's still quite a lot to learn. So the site, I'll show you a map now. So this is where the eggs were reported from. This is Skye here, and this is the Inner Sound. The site has become known as Red Rocks, the initial dive site that we went to. At the beginning of 2021, in March of 2021, Marine Scotland designated an urgent marine protected area for the protection of flapper skate eggs at the Inner Sound, and the site became known as Red Rocks and Longay. The original boundary, if you can see my cursor, was a little bit smaller than this one that you see on your screen, so it came across here. The site was a little bit smaller. So NatureScot provided advice to Marine Scotland and the Scottish Government at that point. And then because it was designated as an urgent MPA, we had a year to collect more data and give more advice to Marine Scotland. So we, in the last year, went back to the site and did drop-down camera surveys, as we refer to them. So this is a camera on a rope, basically, with a live feed to the surface, and we record what the camera sees on the seabed, and that footage can be analysed later. So we mostly use drop camera, but we did use some remote operated vehicle as well. So that's like a mini submarine with a video camera. It's a bit more controllable. You can fly it and make, determine where it's going to go. The drop camera system is a bit more at the mercy of the currents. So we surveyed the initial area here, and as you can see, the green blobs are where we found egg cases, and the larger the blob, the more egg cases we found. So we looked within the original urgent MPA boundary here, and then we extended our search area into this area above, and we did find eggs there, and that's why the boundary of the site has been made bigger, and that's what we'll go to consultation on. The consultation started about 3 weeks ago, so we're going to consultation on this larger boundary. What's interesting about the site is it's quite specific topography on the seabed. So there's this sort of shallow sill Here you can see the edge of it, and this is deep water in this channel here and here, and we're talking 100 meters plus. It's similar to the deep trenches that the skate spend their time in Loch Sunat to the Sound of Jura. So we seem to have you know, deep water that would suit the adults close to the egg laying area. We think the eggs might be associated with the specific topography on the seabed of this shallow sill with the little humps on it. So this has been formed by a glacier moving through the area and leaving moraines behind. And it's quite specific cobble and boulder habitat that the eggs are being found on. So there seems to be an association between the glacial moraines and the eggs, which is really interesting. This slide shows where else we've had reports from eggs, of eggs. So people, citizen scientists report eggs to the Shark Trust, and that data is available. You can search that data actually. If you go to the Shark Trust and filter on flapper skate, you can see where all the flapper skate reports have been made. You can see Orkney has a lot of skate egg cases are washed up on Orkney, thousands, you know, in a year. So there's something special about Orkney and skate eggs that we need to look into more. We are starting to do that, but still lots of work to do there as well. So this puts red rocks into context in the whole of Scotland. So up here we've got Shetland. There's been a few reports of egg cases there. This is Orkney, as I said, there's a lot of reports, not the same number of eggs as we've seen at Red Rocks, where there are hundreds over quite a large extent, but there seems to be small groups of eggs all over the place in Orkney. So something we need to look into and compare to Red Rocks. And this is Loch Melfort, where there's been a few reports of eggs on the seabed, and Loch Melfort is inside the Loch Sunat to the Sound of Jura MPA. So just to finish, we've got another little video that my communications colleagues made for the consultation on Red Rocks and Longay. So this is just to show the uninitiated what a skate looks like. And there's some great footage in here of the skate egg nursery that was collected by ROV. So I'll just let that play for a few minutes. So I hope you agree that that footage is really lovely of the egg nursery, and the volume of eggs, the numbers of eggs, and the extent of the eggs that we're seeing is really massive. So it truly is a nursery rather than an egg laying area, which is perhaps what we're seeing in other sites. We think there's the special seabed and conditions of temperature and current at Red Rocks is what is encouraging the females to lay their eggs there. It seems to be really good conditions for making sure that the eggs hatch, so that's why they're using that area. I just wanted to finish by saying, if you're interested in finding out more about protected sites, all our protected sites, actually I was going to say MPAs, but it's not just MPAs, so our protected sites, if you go to NatureScot and SiteLink, you can find out all the information, download the boundary as a shapefile if you want. look at all the papers that were prepared for the designation of the site. So that's a really useful resource if you want to find out, if you're going somewhere in Scotland and you want to find out what the protected sites might be in the area. Also, I'm involved in a project called MARPAM, which is a regional MPA management project, and they have just produced this really lovely resource which gives more information about the marine protected sites in Argyll. So if you search for MARPAM Argyll, you'll be able to find that. And so there's the NatureScot. I've just noticed I put SNH there because this was an old presentation. But there's the NatureScot pages on Flapper Skate, and that's the address for Skatespotter if you want to go and match images of skate for us. If you like a game of Spot the Difference, you can volunteer to help us. We had a volunteer matching area installed on Skatespotter. So you log in and you are presented with sifted photographs for you to check whether the spot patterns match. And the more volunteers we have on that, the better. So if you want to help with skate conservation and you want to see some photos, more photos of skate, then head over to Skatespotter and have a go at that. So that's me, and I'll stop sharing my presentation now. So you can see me again, hopefully.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jane, for that fantastic talk. Wonderful insight into a project that provides data, that provides evidence to inform decision making and to help protect a species that has previously hadn't had as much data in the past. So fantastic information. And I think I speak for everybody when I say that the video footage of the hatching was just beautiful to see, and then it swimming away was just wonderful. So thank you so much. So now, everyone, we've got time for a Q&A, and already we've had some questions coming in, which is brilliant. If anyone has any others to add, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll pick them up as we go along. So I will start at the beginning and I'll work my way through. So one of the first questions was from Terry. Terry asks, what's the estimated numbers of flapper skate on the West Coast?
Oh goodness, that's a really difficult question. So finding out that information is not easy, as you can imagine, but we know that we have 2,000 in Skatespotter, probably more than 1,500 of those are in the MPA. So we don't yet have this figure for the survival rate and the population size, which Marine Scotland will model, because that is all we can do really. We don't, well, at NatureScot, we don't get a bycatch information. So when a fisherman puts a skate back, he's supposed to record that. We don't get sight of that. We're trying to improve the bycatch data that we have. But with the issue of the two species being split, and only quite recently, there's identification issues with the two species. So whether people can tell them apart. And if you look back over the fisheries data, you don't know whether it's referring to flapper skate or blue skate, so common blue skate. So the historic data doesn't help us either. So we're struggling with that a little bit. But there was an ICES assessment recently, and they know much more about that than I do. So my focus is the MPA and the monitoring of the MPA. So have a look for the ICES assessment and the more recent statements that flapper skate particularly are starting to recover. But there is issues with splitting the species out, so it is difficult.
Great, thank you. Next question was from Nicole. She asked, is there any impact on the skate being taken out of its habitat often? I presume you mean by fishing for them, angling for them. Yeah. So it is an odd way to study a species. However, given skate live in such deep water, it's our only opportunity to learn about them. So, and the angling would continue anyway if we weren't doing the science, because the anglers would be going out. There is no licensing process in Scotland for angling. Northern Ireland did bring in a licensing process, so anglers would have to apply for a license to go and fish for skate, and a condition of that license was providing data.
we haven't gone down that route in Scotland. It's on a more voluntary basis. And it, you know, it is weird, you know, going and you sit on a vessel and you put a fishing rod out and you wait for your species to come to you. That's not how NatureScot normally does its monitoring. We go diving and we film things, or we, you know, so it is very different for us, and we've had to learn new lessons on monitoring a mobile species, but we think we can justify the angling continuing because it gives us a lot of information.
Great, thank you. And yes, you mentioned about you have a license which ensures the animal welfare as well, yeah. So they're always handled correctly and the damage to them isn't done when they're being researched and put back.
Yeah,
absolutely. Great. And then some more questions. So Sarah was wondering, how long do flapper skates live?
So the tag recapture data was used to describe the longevity, if you like, because we need that to model the survival rate. It's one of the things that you need to plug into that model. So that was done first and published recently by Thomas Rainier, who works at Marine Scotland Science at the Aberdeen Marine Lab. And I think it was about 40 years. So they are quite long lived. And this is one of the things about their recovery, is that they are slow reproducers and they live a long time, and they don't reach maturity until they are 10 or 11 or 12 years old. So that's why the recovery will be quite slow from the conservation measures.
Okay, thank you. I've just seen, so Tommy has a hand raised. If it's all right, Tommy, we'll go through the questions in the chat at the moment. And if you have anything else to add that you want to ask, maybe if you unmute later at the end, I'll invite you to do that. But I'll keep going through the chat questions at the moment. So Sarah also asked, she said about stress hormones. How do you know what the baseline calm level is if the samples are taken from the boat ones? Is there a way of comparing?
Yeah, that's a big problem, but getting samples from skate that are swimming around is impossible. So yeah, all we can look at is the recovery rate. So you know, if they're on the vessel and we're giving them oxygenated water, we can watch what happens to them over a few minutes and see whether they're recovering. But the idea of the stress hormones is to look at that and try and understand. However, you know, we're capturing the skate so many times over, you know, it's kind of a justification for angling isn't damaging them over time, because they are living in the same area and being recaptured over and over again.
Okay, that's reassuring. That's good. And then Penny was asking, we're consistently getting hundreds of hatched egg cases washed in Orkney every week on the west coast of Scotland. She collected nearly 5,000 since November the 4th, which is a staggering amount. And then Sarah replied to say, we have some being washed up in the north of Sutherland coast regularly as well. So people are out there finding these egg cases. Are there certain areas that are hotspots for them?
Orkney definitely is for flapper skate. Orkney is a ridiculous number. I mean, we hardly get any in Argyll. We've got lots of adults in Argyll, but we don't get egg cases washed ashore, and that could be to do with storms or something. We don't know, because clearly we think the animals are breeding here because we got the egg from here. So it is a bit of a mystery. Please report them to the Shark Trust, and yeah, so that they can keep a track on what's happening with where the flapper skate eggs are.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really great citizen science going on there with the Shark Trust.
And the key's brilliant. You can't fail to identify your skate egg that you found. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So the link to the Shark Trust Great Egg Case Hunt is provided by the team in the chat. So anyone interested, hop on that and take a look, because it really is important information they're collecting. So I'm just going to go back through. We've got more coming in, which is fantastic. Mia is asking, is there any plans for extending flapper skate research up to Orkney, or is any form of protection plausible for Orkney?
We work with the Orkney Skate Trust a lot, so they're looking for skate eggs on the seabed for us. Well, with us, we give them some funding to do that work, and it's difficult. So it's difficult for us to get up there, and every time we come up, the weather's awful and we can't get out on field work. So we've gone down the route of funding others in the area to do that work and feed back to us. So that's what we've been doing. I don't know is the answer to whether there will be protection in Orkney. We would have to discover an egg nursery, I think, and potentially an area where there are adults as well. And we're not finding that yet. But yeah, it's a needle in a haystack. We still haven't found an egg nursery in Loch Sunat to the Sound of Jura, so we need to keep looking. And where the egg cases wash up really helps with that.
Great, okay, and that actually answers Penny's question, the next one, which was asking if more large egg nurseries are found, are they likely to get protected status? So yeah, the finding of those egg cases is really important for that designation, which is great. Peter is asking, how much do you think the current known distribution is based on survey effort? Do you still think there are important areas to be found?
For skate or for eggs? I don't know. There is an international bottom trawl survey, which is done sort of more rationally, if you like, more scientifically. So the survey is a bottom trawl survey and the number of skate are counted. And that's done all around Scotland. So that gives us a more scientific impression of where the skate are. Because angling, of course, happens in the places where there are lots of skates. So we've got lots of data there. So it kind of skews our data. But the anglers wouldn't be going there if there weren't lots of skates. So yeah, it's tricky. We are trying to get a bit more of a handle on that, as I say, with the bycatch and working with fisheries observers to see if we can't get more of a scientific overview, because the angling gives us brilliant data, but it is skewed to where the anglers are going. So.
Okay, interesting. And then the last question in the chat is from Naomi. This is going back to the discussion we're having about the stress hormone recording. She asks, I guess you could tell if the stress levels were going up or down over time when the same skate has been caught. Does that happen?
I'm not sure we've had the same one caught and monitored in that way, to be honest. And you probably wouldn't see that, because once they're released, they then recover and then they're being captured again. So yeah, I'm not sure you would see a cumulative effect over time, but we have seen, you know, a skate come onto the deck and we start putting the oxygenated water into the gills and they start to recover. So the heart rate goes down and the stress hormones go down over time on the vessel, and then they're released. So I think, you know, we are seeing some sort of recovery on the deck of the vessel during the procedure, and they're not hopefully too stressed.
Great, thank you. So that's all the questions in the chat. I don't know, Tommy, I can see your hand is still raised. Is there a question that you want to ask, if you want to put it in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Hi, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Jane. Yeah, thanks for that presentation. It was really stunning to see that in action. I'm a fisherman in Tyre, working static nets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a few years quietly. But this year in particular, in every 0.4 of a mile of nets off Kintyre, we're catching 30, 35 flapper skate.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal this year, absolutely phenomenal. Problem is, Jane, like our hake, you know, the demersal species that we're trying to catch, they're all just bellies are all bitten out of them. There's a huge predation level in our area, and it's caused by flapper skate. And I would like to ask, I'm a responsible fisherman. I've always tried to be my whole life, been fishing for 40 years. At what point would, how do we know when flapper skate is at the level of recovery that it doesn't need protected anymore? Because really, I fear that the balance of protection is starting to impact on other demersal species that also need to be, protected and be sustainable. And I think certainly in my area, and in a lot of areas in the West Coast, we're starting to lose that balance. you know, I totally get, you know, I know what's going on here and why it's happening, but I just want to make everybody aware that there has to be, you know, proper science done here, and there has to be a judgment made, and when the level of recovery in skate and flapper skate gets to a point that, you know, maybe it's a bit similar to spur dog. You know, they're a protected species too, and the predation level of spur dog and flapper skate is, you know, in a lot of areas is, if I can liken to, you know, if you reintroduced wolves to the Highlands of Scotland, you know, fenced off an area and left them in cart flaps that once they were mature, they could escape out of there. It wouldn't be long before they were overrunning the whole of the Highlands, you know, and Scotland. And yeah, I just feel like while it's good work, you know, I just feel that there must be a point when, you know, we need to see that the balance, the natural balance is starting to tip the other way here, and impacting on other species. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
It's really interesting. As I said, we have trouble getting to the bycatch data, so I'm trying to join all of that stuff up, you know, to find out how many skate are being put back and what fishermen think the damage is. It'd be really interesting to talk to you more, if you don't mind passing on your details, and I can give you a ring or you can phone me. That would be really useful to help me understand. And we do have some funding to look into bycatch and see, and the more data we get, the more we can justify that we've reached our limit, if you see what I mean, of the protection, and we've done our job. But if we can't get hold of that data, then it's really difficult for us to get to that point.
Great. Thank you. I saw Tom, you gave you thumbs up there. That's brilliant. And actually that sparked a question from Robin. Robin, on that note, was asking, can you talk a bit more about flapper skate prey items, Jane?
Oh, it's something that we again don't know a huge amount about, and we have tried to get some funding. I've bid for some funding for this year to start trying to understand what flapper skate do eat. We see them occasionally on the angling vessels. They unfortunately regurgitate their dinner because they're spitting up the bait that the anglers use to catch them. So, you know, quite often they're spitting up prawns. We've seen spur dog come out of the bellies, which is amazing. You know, the spur dog will have no skin on it, but it'll still have the spine on it, and you think, well, how has the skate coped with that in its digestive system? So yeah, a wide range of things they seem to eat. We've seen crabs coming out of them as well. So we're hoping to study that a little bit more, and that's a stable isotope project. So you take a tissue sample and you look at the stable isotopes, as well as potentially doing gastric lavage to find out what is in the stomach. It will be quite unpleasant, I think, but
oh, it doesn't sound pleasant.
No, not for the skate and not for us either.
Brilliant. Well, that is all the questions that have come through the chat. That's been brilliant. It's been so lovely to hear from different people, different stakeholders, their experiences, and also, you know, finding the egg cases and things like that. It just goes to show that if you live near the coast, yeah, you can do your bit and help report on it. So yeah, I think we've come to a nice end of the evening. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming along this evening. We've been providing links in the chat to some of the projects that Jane's been talking about, our Dive In pack that Jane very kindly promoted early on in the talk. Thanks, Jane. There's a link for that in the chat as well, and that's also available on our website, and that's aimed at younger audiences. So if you have a young person in your family that's interested in sharks, skates and rays, point them in the direction of that pack. It's got some craft activities in there as well, which is great fun. But yes, this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. We'll be sending you a follow-up email after tonight, providing you a link to that, so you'll be able to re-watch it and send it on to anyone else that's interested. And in terms of other events coming up, so we are going to be announcing the next online Meet the Scientist soon, but in the meantime, we've got lots of in-person events going on at the Scottish Seabird Centre in North Berwick. We've got talks by an author, beach cleans, wildlife walks, all sorts. sorts. So if you're interested, check out our events page on our website, and I can see the team have popped the link in the chat. But other than that, it would be great to have your feedback. I mentioned earlier how it's really important to receive feedback so we know we can continue these events in the future, hear your recommendations about other topics you'd like us to cover. So another link will appear. If you could take a couple of minutes, it's just a few questions to complete that for us, that would be really, really, really appreciated. But yeah, thank you so much to everybody for coming. Feel free to contact the Seabird Centre or Jane with any questions that you might have following on from this talk, and we hope to see you again in the future. Bye.